Captain Keshel, you're the perfect example of this young vanguard, this young generation that's rising up, that's got the spirit of John Paul Jones, not just going in harm's way, but saying to everyone, we've not yet even begun to fight. Fresh off the heels of your contact with Donald Trump, Captain Keshel, welcome to the JSlay program.
You bet. Yep, Steve Munisteri said I was too young to produce this intelligence, but 10 years ago, I was putting warheads on foreheads in Afghanistan.
We need to just call them what they are. These people are cowards. They're intellectual midgets. They have absolutely zero understanding. I could literally go to Nashville right now. I can fly out to Nashville. I mean, you could be like, we're going to whatever bar, and 100 people will show up.
Shooting the warheads. So I want to go ahead and dig into the data. And Seth, I want you to do your best job for the audience with these charts and graphs and maps to convince the people that really have not followed you that this election fraud thing is beyond a shadow of a doubt legitimate.
Sure. And I don't even have to say that F word, because usually not the bad F word, the one you just said, yeah. I don't even have to say it when I present this information, because the point is, fraudulent or not, the results suggest absolute divergence from everything that we've known to be predictive indicators, bellwethers, and trends.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Well,
let me know when you're ready for me to talk on each individual.
Yeah. Are you seeing my screen right now?
I see it. Yep.
Okay, Seth, go ahead and get started here with your map and walk us through it.
Every assessment starts at the foundation. This is the trend map for presidential elections since 2008. 2008 is an important year to start with because this was a high point for Democrats, especially in the traditional working class states in what we call the Rust Belt.
Right.
The Rust Belt is not a flattering term, by the way. That is a term used to describe an area that has been devastated by trade deals like NAFTA.
Okay.
Which is precisely the reason why the area began moving away from Democrats in Obama's first term. And then when a working class Republican like Donald Trump came on the scene, surged towards the GOP. That is why when you look at Pennsylvania, Michigan, especially Pennsylvania and Michigan in 2020, the reversal in their trends there is absolutely not there. It's kind of like a baseball player. When you have a good career, you turn 35, your legs start going out, you're okay, 36, and then 1 year you show up to spring training, it's like you're cut. There's no coming back from that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Like once the trend is in motion, it's in motion.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this map here,
yes.
Like I said, any analyst should be able to get 2/3 of the states right. That's not a high calling. So those states that are in crimson and those states that are in the dark blue, those states are in the bag for either party. So the red's obviously in bag for any Republican nominee, the dark red, the crimson, and then the dark blue's in the bag for any Democrat nominee. I get a lot of people that are like, well, we know Trump won California. Okay, so if for 30 years they've been baking in millions of votes of fraud and then they're flipping votes cyberly, then yes, okay, then he won California. Now, I prefer to wait until we have this thing called evidence to make such an assessment like that, given that the point of everything right now is to convince rational human beings that there are issues with the swing states in this year's electoral college. That is my entire MO. So until we have any information like that, it's pointless to say stuff like that because all it does is alienates the middle of the road tax cut style Republican who smells something wrong, but he, thinks that a lot of people are just crazy.
Right.
But so the dark red and the dark blue are in the bag. Then we have some other shades. So we have the increasing Republican and increasing Democrat, meaning they're trending towards that party, meaning that they're going to go, especially when the party registration suggests it. So North Carolina and Florida this year were in that boat for Republicans. Right. Since Trump already won them in 2016, they both moved heavily Republican in registration advantage. And I can show you a 2 to 3 decade run line of how the trend going in favor of either party pushes that state in that direction during the election. So, of course, if you have North Carolina already 4 points in Trump's corner from the last election and it keeps going more Republican, it's suggesting to me a victory margin over 5 points. And the same in Florida, which Florida actually came true even with a lot of fraud in Florida. So you had a 1.2 victory in 2016 and now it was 3.5. So Florida, even with issues, went further right. You had a huge convergence of the white conservative vote with the coalitions changing against Democrats in South Florida, with a lot of the Cubans and Venezuelans moving towards Trump.
And just Seth, 1 second. So to provide a little context here, because I don't think we have this map, but on your Telegram page, you have each state mapped out county by county and are
Correct.
providing these evidences of what happened that is implausible, and how it's implausible per county by county. So it's not like you're just looking at the state as a whole. You looked at it county by county, right? I mean, over months.
I'm trying to deal in reality. We have over 3,000 counties and independent cities in the United States, and a lot of people that are just swinging for the fence. They need to prioritize targets, because it's already hard enough to find people that are willing to risk the political capital to get anything done like this.
Yes.
And we have to target where the most obvious first level discrepancies lie. And I'm the front line of that with the trend data. So I don't dig into how. I go along the beach with my metal detector and I see what and where. And then you have the other mechanisms. Okay, well, this is cyber. This is ballot stuffing. This is harvesting, that kind of stuff. So we have increasing Democrat states too. We have Colorado and Virginia. Colorado is verifiable by registration. And then Virginia, of course, doesn't have party registration, but very heavy voter registrations in the northern part, where you have people moving down to the DC suburbs, and that's not favorable to what is mostly, the rest of it's a very conservative state, kind of like North Carolina. And then, of course, you have the tightening states, tightening against Democrats, the two that were kind of in play, one being a dark horse. Nevada was definitely in play, and it was a Trump state, and that's very obvious. We just had a report come out yesterday about 9,000 absolute votes that don't exist in Nevada. And then in New Mexico, you have it was 10 points, like it was 8 points a couple of years ago, and it moved a couple points Republican. And there are issues in New Mexico. I'm not sure that Trump won that state, but I guarantee you that it was close. And then the tightening Republican states with a Republican incumbent, with record Republican support, record Republican primary support, he's not going to lose Texas, Arizona, or Georgia as an incumbent. But those are states that are getting more urban and suburban that could potentially, with the right cocktail brewing, bad Republican nominee, dynamic Democrat nominee, could flip.
Could flip, but likely did
not. Not in 2020, no.
Yeah. So let's talk Arizona, because they're the one I think they're the furthest along with an audit, correct?
Yes. Arizona, 2/3 of the vote in Arizona, which you spent a fall league there, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, Mesa.
So Arizona here's why we have an audit. I'll explain that. Arizona is a longtime Republican bastion. Since World War II ended, it's only gone blue twice. So in 1948 for Harry Truman, and in 1996 for Bill Clinton against Bob Dole. Mm-hmm. Maricopa County produces almost 2/3 of the votes in that state. That's the county, obviously, that houses Phoenix Metro. And Maricopa County,
Maricopa County alone provides 2/3 of the entire state's vote.
Almost, yes. It's sort of like, it's almost like Clark County.
Okay.
Nevada.
Well, and I'm sure a lot of people know that. I did not. So that makes that county incredibly important for the turnout.
It's a must-win. It's a must-win.
Got it. Okay, go ahead.
Yep. So that county has been Republican every election since 1952. So Truman won it in 1948, and even Bob Dole carried it when he lost Arizona in 96.
Yeah.
Trump carried Maricopa County in 2016 with fewer votes than Mitt Romney had in 2012, and he still carried it. So this year, Trump decided, I'm going to go for a record Republican vote gain in Maricopa County of 250,000 net new votes. Nobody's ever been within 50,000 of that number.
This was something Trump actually decided to do.
No, he didn't decide. I was just kind of laying it out there sarcastically that Trump pulled 250,000 net new votes in Maricopa County just so he could lose it for the first time in 72 years.
Yeah.
All right. So Biden's vote gain was 292% higher than their previous record vote gain in the county. So people are going to say, Doug Ducey's lawyers said, well, we got population growth. Well, I ran the numbers on that too. You have actually a declining percentage because the number gets bigger every decade, but the actual number of new people moving to Maricopa County has been steady, 700 to 900,000 people a decade since 1990. So every 4 years, you do have a massive pile of new people that could potentially vote. So that has a
292% increase for the Democrat vote.
He went from 702. Clinton had 702,000.
Okay.
And Biden had 1.04 million. So 338,000 new votes. Their previous new vote gain record was 118,000, and they had 100,000 two other times. So he's 338 over with Trump at a record Republican gain.
That goes back to that Sammy Sosa, Mark McGuire thing. So you got
correct.
2 people more votes than ever. It doesn't compute. So we're doing this audit, and but it seems, if I right now go on to Google or DuckDuckGo and I type in Arizona audit and I begin to scroll, what pops up? Just the different, 8 or 9 out of 10, that's 80 or 90% are going to try to debunk it or just say this is a Republican-led fraudulent audit. Yeah, I mean, that's going to happen.
Of course, and that's why all the attention on the audit team is not qualified and biased. It has nothing to do with what numbers may be reported. One of the things that came out of their Senate hearing on July the 17th was that ballots have been scanned multiple times. And they declined to say how many times. I'm not sure if they know if they're able to tell how many times any individual ballot was scanned, but they already said that there's proof that ballots are being scanned multiple times. But one thing that people need to understand is it's not the count that matters, it's the canvas. Okay, so if there are phantoms out there, then a canvas will identify addresses that may not be built yet or anywhere else that imaginary voters may exist. And we're only talking about 10,457 votes separating these two candidates in Arizona.
And there was a number that's ringing a bell in my brain right now. 75,000 votes came in that were never sent out, something like that. There was 75,000 more votes that were mailed in than were ever mailed out, ballots, I should say.
Yes. Well, there appears to be a discrepancy between what the audit team put out and what the county reports that I think will be resolved. But needless to say, you have some serious issues with double scanned ballots. And of course, we don't know what's going to come out of the final report, but a canvas is going to be essential to find this out. I mean, to see if Biden truly gained 338,000 votes in that state, which I in the county, which I highly doubt. And another county that should be forensically audited in Arizona is Pima County, which is the county that houses Tucson.
Gotcha. Well, with the other side's game plan of distract and character assassinations, and basically, like you said, they're not going to speak to the data, but they're just going to call it a partisan thing or a fraudulent audit or however they word it. If there are irrefutable results that come out of this audit based on the data and the numbers, how is that story going to be told in such a way to get Arizona to flip and for the powers that be to say, yep, okay, it was wrong? And maybe they get in trouble, maybe they don't, but we look at now at Arizona as a state where a big mistake was, they call it a mistake rather than cheating. But how do we get that to happen? Can it happen?
I believe they've counted the ballots physically 3 times. So we're talking about nearly 2.1 million certified ballots. There will be a count that will say, here's how many physical ballots that we have. Here's how many that were reported. So there will be a delta there, I would assume, of something. That's then if there's an allowable limit federally also, that's a ton of ballots. So there will be a delta with that. And then if you have a count on how many ballots were scanned more than one time, then you will have that. And I would assume will be a scorecard of who was voted on those ballots that were recorded multiple times. And then if you have a breakdown by precinct, there's hundreds and hundreds of precincts in Maricopa County with a few thousand votes apiece. So this can be spread apart, 12 here, 15 there, phantom voters that don't exist. The voter registration growth in Maricopa County will blow you away. Now, people are going to say, well, the county's growing. The county has grown by the same number of people consistently since 1990, 700,000 to 900,000 people per decade, and that has not changed.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a lot of people, of course, but you have the opportunity to register voters every 4 years. So now the voter registration numbers have massive amounts of new Republicans, but miraculously now you have, of course, the catch up in the registration. So I believe that one of the main problems we will find nationwide is the rolls. The registration rolls are needing to be purged from dead and inactive voters in some states or straight up rigged in others, like New Hampshire being a really good example. So Arizona, if you have a report that comes out that specifies here's how many votes were double counted, triple counted, quadruple, quintuple counted, okay? And then you have a listing of canvass results that show here's how many, we had 12 votes come out of this house and this house isn't even built. Then you're going to have pretty definitive proof to where you can challenge it all you want, but it's plain as day. Run out to, 45 Slade and Drive, and you won't even see anything there, but we have 10 votes from there. It's hard to argue that kind of stuff. So if there's going to be anything definitive like that, then the proof will be in the pudding. And it'll be up to the Arizona legislature to do something about that, like a resolution of sorts. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to be affirmed or acknowledged by the entity that is responsible for certifying and counting electors, because the Constitution specifies a date and place for that to happen. But it will absolutely be a first of its kind event.
Okay.
But I wouldn't believe any information unless it comes out of the audit team.
So the big question there is, you know, because I'm listening for the key people, the key groups that are the decision maker. I've talked a lot about, well, what the public thinks, or what big tech suppresses, or what they allow you to see. But you said the proof's in the pudding. So that big bowl of pudding, okay, who does that have to be slid in front of? You said the Arizona legislature, they've got to rule on this. But half of those people, I'm thinking, just kind of a 50-50 breakdown, are going to have to acknowledge something that would be extremely detrimental to decisions and stances that they have taken to this point. And but when's the last time we've seen a humble politician? I mean,
it's clear that anybody who goes down on this is going to muddy the waters as much as possible, that this is biased. But that's why this report has to take so long.
Sure.
Okay, this thing has to be bulletproof if indeed it contains detrimental findings to the integrity of Maricopa County's election. Because the point of the audit is not to disaffirm anyone's victory or confirm someone's victory. The point of the audit is there's serious allegations based on evidence, which affidavits are evidence sworn under the penalty of perjury, that there is fraud in this county's elections. That's really the point of this. So if the audit effort suggests that there is a loss of internal control in the county's election process, then that will be made clear to the Senate I'm sure in a few weeks. This will be released to the Senate.
Okay.
And I would assume that it's going to be a bulletproof, detailed, documented, researchable, verifiable report that will completely exonerate any sort of belief that there could be wrongdoing or bias in the process.
Well, I sure hope that it gets looked at, you know, regardless of how just strong and accurate it is, irrefutable evidence. I hope that the legislature will look at it, and I assume they will, I guess.
Yeah, they will. And they'll have no choice. It's going to be a nationwide thing, and everybody's watching this. Okay. But you have, people don't seem to understand just how much 2.1 million is. I'm kind of looking off to the sides of my computer right now, and I've got a tablet, I've got a phone, I've got a couple books and a couple random pieces of paper on my desk, and I feel like I've got a mess I can't even clean up.
Yeah.
So imagine 2.1 million ballots. Sure. Having to forensically review and evaluate every one of them and score the ballots and make sure that your counts are right. Or somebody messed up the count one night in one bin and you have to recount everything. So there's a human factor here as well. So this is not something that you do lightly, that you release haphazardly.
Okay. Well, we probably, and this is my fault, kind of stayed on Maricopa County a little long because you've got other slides to go through. Let's go ahead and move through them. I'm going to reshare the screen here. Okay. So next is this guy, and I'll blow this up.
The next few slides are on the presidential national environment.
Okay.
There's a article written by me and by General Flynn. I did the research. General Flynn wrote the introduction and the conclusions that are national points that I challenge anybody to review and to refute.
Okay.
This is since 1900. This slide shows votes gained over previous election by presidents that were reelected. Now, of course, we have Trump 2020 on the far right here. But since 1892, no president has failed to be reelected if he gained a single vote. So gaining votes equals reelection. There are three on here, FDR twice and then Obama in 2012, who lost votes from the previous election and were still reelected. So gaining votes equals winning reelection. Now that's true. I want you to state that again clearly for the audience. Since 1892, no incumbent president has gained votes and lost reelection. Wow. Okay. So now that
says a lot in itself.
That's not causation. That's correlation. So sure. Of course that's not a hard science. But look how many votes Trump gained. Trump gained over 11 million votes. You only have two in this graph that are higher than that. And there's a good reason. Nixon in 1972. So in 68, Nixon had a three-pronged race. You had Humphrey was his Democrat opponent, but then you had George Wallace in the South. Wallace won electoral votes in the South. So he was the last third-party candidate to take electoral votes. So Nixon naturally in 72, with his incumbent strength and a lot of the good things he did in his first term, and he faced a far-left challenger in 72 when America was not nearly where it is today. You had a tremendous amount of vote growth for Nixon. He won 49 states. And then you have Bush 04. 2000 was a very low turnout election. And 2004 was a high turnout election for both parties comparatively to 2000. And that got us at the level which I call the high turnout era, which is useless to analyze any of these trends back to 2000. And Bush gained a lot more votes over 2000. But then there's Trump. So Trump organically, probably his impact is higher, given that these are not the two piles that I just showed you are kind of special circumstance.
Got it. Okay. Well, that provides a great overview just in itself. All right, let's go to the next one here.
This is a really good one. Coalition building is why we have the electoral college system that we have. Otherwise, you could just sit on the bully pulpit of New York, Florida, Texas, and California and go for a national popular vote and forget about the other 46 states, right?
Mm-hmm.
Coalition building is why the founders wanted an electoral college, so you could build a coalition, broad support. Ohio, Iowa, Florida, and North Carolina. These are 4 states that represent broad coalitions. You have urban, rural, white, black, Asian, Hispanic, unions, white collars, everybody. So these 4 states are a big coalition. And since 1896, there have been 13 elections in which all 4 of these states were won by the same candidate. And all 13 times, the candidate that won all 4 of these states has won that election. So he's either elected or reelected. Donald Trump won all 4 of these in 2016 and won, and he won all 4 of these in 2020 and somehow has not won the election. These are 4 very strong predictive states that Trump carried all 4 of them again, and now he's not in the White House. This is a head scratcher. These are bellwethers. Of course, we have bellwether counties. We have individual bellwether states, but this is a bellwether coalition.
Wow.
Yeah.
You mean to keep moving on?
Next slide. Yep.
Great point.
And here's another one. So these are just 3 nuggets off of the brief that Flynn and I put together.
Okay.
Here's 3 landslide examples that pertain to House seats. So you heard the phrase, a rising tide lifts all boats, right?
Yes.
So you've got that ace that just nobody can hit him, right? You're going to go out there and your offense is going to scratch across 2 runs and you're going to win. Right. Because your ace he's on the ball. So if you got the star quarterback in there and he's run into a national landslide, then you can assume that everybody's going to ride his coattails in the House, and a huge turnout to elect a president in a landslide. Of course, these are popular vote landslides plus electoral landslides. Obama had a big electoral win in 2008. Of course, Reagan blew the map out twice. He won almost everything in 1984. Had it not been for Mondale being from Minnesota, he'd have carried all 50 states. But what we have here is Reagan netted 34 seats for the Republicans in his 1980 landslide. And this is during a time the Republicans didn't have much of a prayer in having a House majority for about 40 years until 1994.
Okay.
And then Reagan in 84, he clawed back 16 seats. The Republicans had lost seats in 82 in the midterms, as political science would suggest that they would. Reagan's landslide in 84 brought 16 more Republican seats with it. And then, just to be fair, we'll go to the blue side. In Obama's landslide, he pulled 21 Democrat House seats. So would you like to take a stab at how many House seats the Democrats netted in 2020?
No, go tell us.
Minus 13.
Okay, highly irregular, implausible, right?
Correct. They did not knock off a single Republican House incumbent.
Wow. Yeah, give me some more context for that. So that means when people were voting, what would have had to happen is they would have had to vote for Biden, and then as they went down the vote choices, they would have had to vote for the Republicans or not vote at all.
The argument is made by the press that people showed up, Republicans showed up, Republicans didn't like Trump, but they wanted an all-Republican Congress, and they voted for Biden. Although the rebuttal to that high turnout for Biden is the primary performances, which I have a graphic I could have given you from the same briefing. Trump has one of the highest primary performances on record, 94%. No incumbent president with a primary performance above 73% has ever lost re-election.
Yeah. Well,
Trump was at 90. Trump was at 94. Biden was laughed out of the 3 early Democrat primaries that generally gauge a candidate's strength for a general election.
Yeah, I almost think, I do know some Republicans that say they were embarrassed by Trump and they didn't vote for president, but they voted for everybody else, Republican or whatever. But for every one of those, I bet there were 2 people out there that loved Trump, and he had such popularity. I mean, look at his rallies. I don't see how that argument holds water from the other side.
It's laughable. I've run into some people who didn't personally like the man or they didn't like his Twitter, but 100% would vote for him through hell or high water based on policy. There's very few Republicans who did not vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, up until the great pandemic, we were doing pretty darn good. If you go back to December of 2019, January of 2020, I mean, everything was kind of kicking on all cylinders, and country was doing great. And I remember celebrities and people on the left saying, we have to be willing for something really. I remember Bill Maher and others back in 2018, 2019 saying, we've got to be willing to have the economy really suffer in order to get Trump out of office. It was almost like we want bad things to happen so that he has to exit stage right, and then here comes coronavirus and I don't know. It was like on cue. It was too.
It's their religion. It's their religion. That's why, like anything to get it done. And that's not to make light of anyone who's died of coronavirus or been sick of it, but it was absolutely politicized to make sure that election integrity could be circumnavigated,
right,
to produce certain outcomes.
Agreed. Okay, so here's the Georgia GOP stronghold.
This ought to be